Our next paper is a virtual one from Dr. Ben Ackerman, Exploration Manager for Newcrest Mining.
Good morning. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to present the discovery of Havieron today. Here at NewGen, it's an honour and another fantastic achievement for the Newcrest and Greatland teams. The discovery of Havieron is credited to bold exploration by Greatland Gold, who were willing to drill deep holes undercover and to test conceptual geophysical targets. In a little over 3 years, Havieron has gone from a conceptual undercover target to one of the most exciting and advanced gold projects in Western Australia. Having delivered a maiden inferred resource in 2020, a pre-feasibility and commencement of an exploration decline in 2021, the Havieron project is now in feasibility study stage with potential for achieving first production in FY24. Before I present the Havieron discovery story, I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we explore, the Madu people. I acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging, and respect and value the importance of preserving their culture and customs. This is just our disclaimer. I won't go into any detail. However, I wish to advise the presentation may contain some forward-looking statements, and the resources and results presented in this presentation are available on the Newcrest website. The Havieron gold copper discovery was made under 400 metres of post-mineral cover in the central eastern portion of the Paterson province. It's located about 480 kilometres east-southeast of Port Hedland and 45 kilometres east of Telfer in the Great Sandy Desert. The project is a joint venture with Greatland Gold, with Newcrest now holding 70% interest. The Havieron deposit is centred on a coincident 100 nanotesla magnetic anomaly and 0.5 milligal gravity anomaly, which drilling of remodelled targets in 2018 by Greatland Gold intersected significant high-grade mineralisation. In March 2019, Newcrest entered into a farming agreement with Greatland, and since this time, Newcrest has undertaken an aggressive drilling program with over 200,000 metres of drilling completed. Work has now defined an inferred mineral resource estimate of 3.4 million ounces of gold and 160,000 tonnes of copper. And drilling continues to define further growth options around the resource and the system, which remains open at depth to the northwest, and a number of growth targets are being drill tested as we speak. There's currently 8 drill rigs active at Havieron. The image on the right-hand side shows the regional gravity of the Paterson province, and Havieron occurs on the shoulder of an extensive gravity high and basin bounding margin. Note the occurrence of Winu on the same structural break in the northern Paterson. Havieron, under 420 metres of post-mineral cover, is one of Australia's next generation of deep undercover discoveries. The Havieron discovery comes some 50 years after the first recognition of gold-bearing gossans at Telfer, which remains in production today. And the exploration history spans 4 periods of activity in searching for satellite systems to Telfer. Newmont Australia in the 1980s conducted regional geophysics and shallow drill testing. Newcrest Mining had several campaigns in the 1990s and early 2000s, with deep drilling successfully intersecting basement mineralisation. Greatland Gold from 2017 to 2019, and Newcrest as manager of the Havieron joint venture with Greatland Gold from 2019 to present day. The Paterson province remains a key anchor district for Newcrest, whereby we seek to realise value through looking deeper and opening up new search spaces undercover. And this is in support of growth opportunities for Telfer. The Paterson province is well defined over 2,000 kilometres in northwest to southeast extent, extending from the coastline of Western Australia down into Central Australia. And the province is sandwiched between the Archean Pilbara Craton to the west and is undercover from the Phanerozoic Canning Basin. The structural history of the Paterson is well documented, with 2 prominent deformation events associated with the Miles and Paterson orogeny, with the latter being associated with the main mineral stages in the region. Proterozoic rocks of the Yanina Basin host significant gold mineralisation at the major basin margins, which have been concealed for many years. And the province gold endowment of the known systems is in the order of 32 million ounces of gold. The Proterozoic Unina Basin hosts both Telfer and Havieron deposits, with Havieron sitting in the upper stratigraphy of the Lamel group. And this is mostly shallow to deep marine sedimentary package. Major northwest trending faults control the basin formation, and Havieron is sitting on one of these major northwest structures. Bimodal granites intrude the Proterozoic sediments from 645 MA to 605 MA as both ilmenite and magnetite series granites. And the mineralisation at Telfer is associated with multi-stage quartz, dolomite, pyrite and chalcopyrite reefs, veins and associated stockworks that were in place into a northwest trending anticline or domal feature. The Telfer mineralisation is synorogenic in timing from 645 to 620 MA and associated with hybrid granite emplacement and considered to be distal intrusion-related gold system. Now, while mineralisation at Havieron is thought to be of a similar age to Telfer, Havieron represents a more proximal intrusion-related gold-copper system. Exploration for intrusion-related gold targets undercover in the Patterson represents a new search space when compared with the traditional Telfer analogues, which have been extensively explored in outcropping terrain. Now, the exploration history of Telfer and ultimately Havieron starts with Newmont, Australia in the 1970s. At Telfer, intensive exploration and resource drilling was undertaken from 1972 to 1975. And here's a great shot of the first drill hole underway at that time. Newmont then partnered with BHP Gold to form a mining joint venture, with mining at Telfer commencing in 1975. During the next 5 years, both Newcrest and BHP went alone and explored independently throughout the region, with Newmont undertaking the first work that would cover the Havieron system. In 1986, Newmont Australia flew a regional magnetic survey with 1 kilometre flight lines, and that first defined a prominent bullseye anomaly. Subsequent to this, there was closer space mag flown at 200 metre centres and ground mag, and in 1988, the name Havieron was given to the prominent bullseye feature at this location. On the right-hand side, we can see the contoured mag response and mag modelling over Havieron, which suggested a causative mafic plug was 360 metres below surface and the primary target. Newmont completed 17 rab holes over this to depths of 100 metres, and not surprisingly, didn't hit anything of note that would explain the magnetics or geochemical anomalism. And this led to Newmont exiting in 1989. In 1990, the newly formed Newcrest picked up tenements northeast of Telfer, including Havieron, and this became known as Anketel Project. Newcrest geologists identified the Canning Basin sediments obscured the Havieron target, and that earlier Newmont drilling had failed to intersect the Proterozoic basement. In 1991, a single hole was drilled, which returned 30 metres at a gram under 420 metres of cover, and showed mineralisation associated with pyrrhotite and chalcopyrite bearing breccias. Reviewing this hole today, there's several salient features that we should take note of. There was extensive hydrothermal alteration with actinolite and biotite throughout the hole, and mineralisation associated with pyrrhotite, quartz and carbonate. There were multiple +1 gram per tonne gold intervals and 1,000 ppm copper intervals with hundreds of ppm bismuth. And there was evidence of higher grade with up to 15 grams per tonne gold seen. This wasn't a bad first hole and a great early indication of the potential of the Havieron system. The images shown here on the screen, we've got the mag contours now zoomed in, and over the next few slides, we'll be looking at the evolution of geophysical and geophysical targeting and drilling over this area. And we also see the first mag modelling from Newcrest, which again showed a depth of about 400 metres for the causative body. In 1992, Newcrest conducted further geophys surveys with a ground gravity survey over a 2 by 3 kilometre grid. And this identified a 0.2 milligal anomaly coincident with the mag, which is now shown as the background in the contour map on the left-hand side. A second drill hole into the basement was sighted on the peak gravity response, and this again returned 28 metres at a gram and showing similar pyrrhotite and chalcopyrite sulphide assemblages. And again, evidence of high grade was seen with 1.1 metres at 16 grams returned. The gravity high response formed a circular target of approximately 500 metres by 500 metres, as shown in the hotter colours here. And gravity modelling also derived a source target at 420 metres depth with over 1,000 metres vertical extent. In 1993, Newcrest then conducted a single CSAMT traverse north-south over the Havieron system, and this picked up the cover sequence well, which was seen to be quite uniform across the system. However, there were no basement features identified. 3 further drill holes were drilled by Newcrest in 1995, and all returned low tenor results with variable intensity of hematite and chloride alteration. And this supported at the time the skarn model. Importantly, HAC 9502, shown in the centre of the image on the left-hand side, identified a broad zone of low-grade breccia mineralisation and alteration with over 130 metres at 0.1 gold and anomalous copper. The other 2 holes returned only weakly anomalous gold and copper, but still had extensive hematite alteration. From 1996, Newcrest prioritised Telfer growth options, and this and many other tenement areas in the region were farmed out to Normandy, although Normandy did no work over the Havieron system, as subsequently withdrew from the JV. In the early 2000s, Newcrest again re-evaluated the Havieron system and drilled a single hole, HAC 0301, 400 metres to the southeast of the first high-grade hole from 1991. There was no significant zones of mineralisation identified, although an extensive hydrothermal alteration assemblage of actinolite biotite carbonate was observed within the low metasediments surrounding Havieron. We know now that this drilling was sited only just outside the high-grade crescent sulphide zone, and given the dramatic gradients in alteration and mineralisation, this hole had only missed the southeast crescent zone by tens of metres. At the time, a second hole was planned, but due to other priorities, it wasn't drilled. And history would show that the next drill hole, some 15 years later, would be the one that would set Havieron on a path of discovery. The geologist at the time was none other than Alan Wilson, who correctly surmised that the intrusion-related hydrothermal system was open at depth and still remained prospective. Alan has since been instrumental in mapping out the Havieron geology, working with us and spending countless hours in the field relogging core. Exploration on the regional projects at this time was again stopped by Newcrest in order to focus on Telfer, and this subsequently led to the withdrawal of Newcrest from regional exploration in the Patterson in 2009. Importantly, at this time, drilling had now tested across the extent of the coincident mag and gravity anomaly and delineated a large zoned alteration footprint of 500 metres by 500 metres. And after 6 holes, it was clear that the potential of the system remained. In 2017, Greatland Gold purchased E45 4701 from the then title holder, Pacific Trends Resources, and they recognised that the gravity response showed a subtle gravity gradient decreasing to the northeast, but was disrupted in part by 3 linear sand dunes. And you can see that in the digital terrain model here, shown in the second panel from the right-hand side. They then went about reprocessing the gravity and corrected the density model using the sand dunes or using the gravity of sand to derive a terrain-corrected residual gravity response. And that's shown on the second panel from the left-hand side there. And you'll note there's an offset in the gravity, peak gravity response when compared to the peak mag response, the furthest left-hand panel. Geologically informed forward modelling was then undertaken and refined a target volume of 400 metres by 600 metres from 420 to 1300 metres below surface. And additionally, this model, which took into account both mag and gravity, corrected for the magnetic remnants of pyrrhotite mineralisation, and this resulted in a shift of that target area 200 metres to the south, and pretty much lining up with the peak gravity response. The combined targeting model is shown in the furthest right-hand panel, and the resultant target body was only drilled by 2 holes. So this was the opportunity that Greatland then embarked upon. In April of 2018, Greatland completed 4 vertical holes, and the first drill hole, had 001, intersected high-grade mineralisation with 121 metres at 3 grams, including 11 or 12 metres at 21 grams and a peak gold response of 137 grams. Lower tenor gold and copper continued for the entire length of the drill hole and suggested that it was more prospective at depth and aligned very much with the geophysical modelling to date. This figure shows, excuse me, this figure shows a modelled cross-section and profile along a northwest section line of the Havieron system, and the Greatland target volume is shown in green. The 2 Newcrest holes that were conducted earlier that went through the centre of the target area just weren't drilled deep enough to clip the high grade. And after 15 years of Havieron lying dormant, Greatland's bold strategy to drill under deep cover had paid off, and this would have been a very special moment for Callum Baxter and the Greatland team. In subsequent drilling campaigns in 2018, Greatland then continued to show high-grade potential of the system with significant widths of gold and copper and extensive vertical continuity of mineralised breccias. Drill hole had 005 was reported in November of 2018 and returned spectacular grades from 2 zones. An upper zone of 118 metres at 3 grams and 0.84% copper occurred immediately under basement cover, at the basement contact, and a lower zone of 157 metres at 6 grams occurred from 660 metres downhole, which included 113 metres at 8 grams per tonne and 0.61% copper. These zones were associated with calcite quartz veins and breccias and massive sulphide dominated by pyrrhotite and chalcopyrite mineralisation. The upper and lower zones were broken at the contact of a cross-cutting dolerite dike. So Greatland in 2018 completed 9 drill holes. They tested over 400 metres vertical extent of the Havieron target and up to 840 metres below surface. The Havieron system had demonstrated stunning grades, and the news of Greatland discovery was setting the world on fire. It would not be until February of 2019 that Rio would officially announce the discovery of Winu, and at this time the hype around the Patterson was at fever pitch. Having formed a relationship with Greatland Gold and prior to their drilling commencement in 2018, Newcrest was watching the progress of Havieron with interest. Newcrest was seeking to grow the resource base and leverage off the existing infrastructure at Telfer, and offered Greatland the ability to both fast-track exploration and eventual deep mining capability. As such, Newcrest became the partner for Greatland Gold, and in March 2019, Greatland and Newcrest formed an exploration farming agreement with drilling commencing from May 2019. Initial drilling by Newcrest sought to define the extensive mineralised system to a depth of 1,000 metres, and Newcrest's first hole, had 10, was an absolute fizzer. Eventually, we'd understand that it was only one of several holes without significant mineralisation in the project to date. And we'd also identify that it was instrumental in understanding the geological interpretation of the southeast crescent zone. Additionally, HAD10 was later seen to be less than 50 metres from the main mineralised complex and demonstrated the sharp grade drops at the extremities of the system, which have now been seen many times in later drilling. Drilling for geology continued to test east-west fences with deep incline drilling across the system on 100 to 200 metre centres and all about HAD 005. A series of high-grade zones within a broad mineralised envelope were defined, and the position and geometry of a cross-cutting and subvertical dolerite dike, which precedes a north-south orientation, was defined through the Havieron system. Concurrently and fairly early in the system, in the drilling program, a re-logging exercise in the Greatland shed in Perth identified that HAD 006, an earlier Greatland hole, had ended in significant mineralisation, and Newcrest extended this hole from 800 metres to 1200 metres. This returned the first sign of deeper high grade, and HAD 006 returned 52 metres at 7 grams from 1120 metres, including 17 metres at 21 grams. And this restored the faith in our exploration approach. Drilling remained open at depth and confirmed the depth potential of high grade, which was now seen to extend over 1100 metres from surface and 700 metres in basement. With the exploration success that we'd had to that point, we ramped up the drilling efforts from 1 rig to 6 rigs by September of 2019. The Havieron geology is incredibly complex. The gradients in alteration and mineralisation are very sharp, but we still have not drilled outside the system. Many hours of re-logging have been undertaken of the Havieron core, both in Perth at Greatland Shed and up on site, including tens and tens of kilometres over multiple campaigns, with consultant Alan Wilson, Dave Finn, myself and the Havieron geologists poring over the core. What Alan brought to the team was a very careful and systematic geological observation approach that would ultimately unravel the geology of Havieron, let us understand the geometry and later the controls on mineralisation. In this way, targeting has evolved rapidly from a Telfer-like model to breccia mineralisation related to an intrusion-centred model. By the end of September 2020, there were 8 rigs in operation, and drilling continued to define large zones of calc-silicate alteration with varying intensity of brecciation, alteration and sulphide mineralisation. Shown here is the evolution of the Havieron geometry over time as a function of grade distribution and key geological features. The 0.5 per tonne gram, the 0.5 gold grade shell is shown here in orange, and the 1 gram per tonne gold shell is shown here in red. The understanding of the geometry of Havieron has evolved over time from initial targeting of north-south trending structural zone and high-grade zones, which are sub-parallel to the dolerite. This evolved to recognition of an arcuate zone of massive sulphide mineralisation, which is shown here in purple and would become known as the crescent zone. With further drilling, an extensive ovoid-shaped alteration zone took shape, with the bulk of mineralisation concentrated along that southeast margin. And the crescent zone was seen to typically be 15 to 30 metres in thickness or width, subvertical, extending over 600 metres from the base of cover. And then surrounding the crescent zone was a series of breccias which extended 50 to 100 metres in width and at depth, and over time would form into a northwest trending zone of mineralised breccias. By September 2020, the geological and grade continuity was starting to take shape. Within that, the Havieron footprint and the upper 600 metres of the crescent zone and adjacent breccias would become the focus for an initial mineral resource estimate just 18 months after the commencement of drilling by Newcrest. In December of 2020, Newcrest announced an initial inferred mineral resource for Havieron of 3.4 million ounces of gold and 160,000 tonnes of copper. And this was based on 125 drill holes for about 125,000 metres of drilling. The resource only covered the upper 600 metres of the system and mostly represented the crescent zone and adjacent breccias, although some of the northwest trending breccias at the time were also taken into the resource. Outside of this, the initial inferred mineral resource, mineralisation remains open, with options for growth recognised at depth to the northwest and as higher grade internal to these breccia zones. On this plan on the left-hand side, you can see the drill intercepts of greater than 1 gram per tonne gold shown below the 4400 RL level, which is 400 metres from the top of the system. And it gives you a sense of the mineralised footprint, which is now over 800 metres by 500 metres in extent. And from some of the recent drilling, we can see significant growth potential outside of the resource. For example, the southeast crescent zone at depth, where we've seen had 33 return 85 metres at 11 grams, which is 200 metres below the resource. And further expansion of the northwest breccia, high-grade breccia zones is also possible. And as evidence from the northwest pod here shown in HAD 89, which returned 116 metres at 3 grams, including 13 metres at 13 grams. Additionally, and quite excitingly, we see potential for a second northwest trending breccia zone at the eastern breccia target, where we've seen extensive zones of mineralisation as evidenced by this hole here, 340 metres at 2 grams with an internal higher grade zone of 14 metres at 19 grams per tonne gold identified. Our co-authors, Anthony Harris and Dave Finn, have provided a very good written account of the Havieron geology, and I urge you all to read that paper with you today. And I'll just touch on it briefly here. Looking at the depth slice of the Havieron geology, the deposit forms within a northwest trending corridor of concentrically zoned calc-sodic to calc-potassic alteration, and it's surrounded by bedded sediments. The mineralisation and alteration is centred about northwest trending body of diorite dikes, with sulphide accumulations best developed at the southeast margin and at the tips of these diorites, and those diorites are shown in green. The mineralisation forms as a series of nested vertically extensive breccia columns, and largely about the diorite contacts. And the hydrothermal breccias coalesce to form the southeast crescent zone, and also extending into that northwest breccias as we move out from the crescent. The host sedimentary unit comprises thinly laminated fine-grained sediments, which all dip southwest to 45 degrees and are variably altered by albite, carbonate, quartz, actinolite and biotite. And the whole sequence is cross-cut by a late post-mineral dike, which is subvertical and appears to be tapping deep pre-existing structures. Multi-phase breccias occur throughout the system and are zoned both vertically and laterally, with upper zones typically calcite cemented and giving way to actinolite, quartz and sulphide cemented breccias with depth and at the core of the system. Higher grades in excess of 2 grams per tonne are typically observed with sulphide cemented breccias, which transition into massive sulphide zones. And these are typically pyrrhotite dominated with lesser chalcopyrite and pyrite. And the best grades that we see in excess of 5 grams per tonne and locally bonanza grades to tens and even hundreds of grams are associated with quartz-rich breccias and associated veins. The Havieron deposit is an intrusion-centred system with well-zoned multi-phase hydrothermal breccias formed from high-temperature magmatic fluids in excess of 450 degrees. This slide now brings us to the present day. Newcrest has completed over 200,000 metres of drilling for growth and resource purposes to date. On the left-hand side, again, we see the planned geology view with the resource extent shown in purple and the blue boxes here showing the targets as we currently understand them. Recent infill drilling has continued to demonstrate the continuity of high-grade mineralisation in the southeast crescent, and just recently in October we reported our best gram-metre intercept from HAD 65 Wedge 2, which returned 121 metres at 9 grams, with a high grade interval of 27 metres at 34 grams. Just spectacular results. And further growth drilling continues to show potential for resource additions outside of the existing mineral resource limits. The extension of the southeast crescent below the mineral resource is certainly a great opportunity where we see increasing grade and thickness of mineralisation, which have been observed from recent drilling, and that southeast crescent zone is now seen over 900 metres in vertical extent and remains open at depth. Further growth is possible from expansion of multiple high-grade targets, including the Northern Breccia and Northwest Pod, where there's potential for high-grade resource additions internal to the breccias that have been identified and due to the recognition of vertically extensive breccia columns. Additionally, there exists potential for a second northwest trending breccia corridor, which we know is the Eastern Breccia target. And just recently, drilling's also commenced testing conceptual geophysical targets within the mining licence and away from the main Havieron system. So to bring this chapter of the Havieron discovery to a conclusion for now, thick post-mineral cover obscures Havieron. Its discovery comes some 50 years after the recognition of gold and copper-bearing gossans outcropping at Telfer. And occurring under 420 metres of cover, the recognition of the distinct bullseye magnetic anomaly was a product of systematic regional scale exploration extending out from Telfer. High-grade pyrrhotite cemented breccias, which are atypical of the Telfer-like system, has Havieron emerging as a more proximal intrusion-related gold system in the Paterson province. The Havieron project has been fast-tracked from discovery through resource and mining study phases with potential for early production, and there exists further potential for significant resource growth over time. While the very first drill holes below cover at Havieron glanced the high-grade crescent zone, it would be 25 years and many contributing factors to make the discovery and rapid advancement of Havieron possible. The discovery of Havieron highlights the importance of a systematic approach to targeting undercover in order to develop an understanding of the alteration, geochemical vectors and fertility, and hopefully identify the footprint and evidence of high grade. Havieron further highlights the need for adaptive exploration models which are built on good geology and consider new information to guide targeting for high grade. This has been coupled with real-time 3D models to allow modelling on the fly. Drilling for geology has been key to understanding the Havieron system, which is technically a challenging deposit. It has taken many campaigns of logging, petros and geochem to understand the geology and geometry and controls to mineralisation, and I feel we still have much more to learn. By being careful with the geophysics, honouring the geology, geology-led geophysical modelling speaks for itself. And I ask you today, how many more Havierons are lying undercover and undetected in historic data? The rapid advancement of Havieron has been via the creation of a collaborative environment which has brought our field teams and industry-leading technical experts together to rapidly build the knowledge, evolve the targeting and enhance understanding of the Havieron system. The last two lessons go hand in hand. Newcrest has had confidence to explore under deep cover, and we're backed by in-house expertise to mine deep ore bodies and a corporate support and mandate to do so. And finally, in 2017 here at NewGen, former Newcrest exploration executive Dan Wood told us that the future of gold exploration would be transformed by deep drilling undercover. It's taken intensive deep drilling programs to realise the potential of the Havieron discovery and a huge effort by our teams to deliver Havieron safely and so quickly. Like all discoveries, the efforts of many have gone into making Havieron what it is today. Myself and co-authors would like to acknowledge the ongoing support of Newcrest and Greatland Gold and the many, many people who have been associated with the 20-year history of field programs, and in particular the last 2 to 3 years. Callum Baxter, who's in the audience today, deserves special mention for the early work conducted by Greatland, which gained them a great deal of success and drew Newcrest into the project. To the Havieron geology team who are listening today, an amazing bunch of young geologists who have worked tirelessly to direct and manage the drill programs and to make careful observations that underpin the geology model. And to our tremendous group of external consultants who have made valuable contributions to the understanding of Havieron, including Scott Halley, Terry Hosky, Laurent Ayers, Brett Davis, Doug Mason, and special thanks to Alan Wilson for many days spent in the field. To the broader Newcrest and Exploration Telfer teams, you've helped along the way in so many ways. Lastly, thank you to the NewGen team and to the audience today to allow me to share the Havieron discovery story. Hopefully, Havieron is one of many future successes in the next generation of undercover discoveries. Thank you very much.
Well, what an exercise in persistence. And who said Australia is a mature search base? Eat your heart out. Clearly, a paper like that will provoke some questions, and I'd like to ask you to show your hand so we can get you on board. Down the back. Thanks, Ben.
Look, I'm just wondering, with the aid of your petrophysical data, have you remodelled the gravity anomaly, and do you adequately explain it?
Yes, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Yes, we have remodelled the gravity, has gone into future targeting. We've also done follow-up gravity surveys over the full extent of the Havieron mining licence, and yes, it is helping us in targeting further. It's definitely, we see that same body that we've seen in earlier modelling. It stands up very well for Havieron itself, and it's allowing us to actually step around the mining licence now and target further.
Okay, looks like you must have covered it all, Ben. A wonderful presentation. I wonder if we could all thank Ben for his paper. Good luck with your further exploration.